Hey guys and gals and non-binary pals, it's Kong again, still sick, but back in action at least with another episode of Should You Summon. As always, I'm going to be presenting high-level overviews using these 4 criteria to help you decide whether these banners are worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. Unlike the last major update, which was stretched out to 5 weeks to accommodate essentially 2 separate updates worth of content, the cycle we're in now is being stretched out to 5 weeks to help us catch up on some of the missing stuff from that big merger. That means we're getting 2 banners this week, one expected one, based on non-guaranteed predictions from the Chinese release schedule, and one unexpected reappearance of a banner we thought had fallen through the cracks. The Dark Reincarnation Destiny banner featuring Listell, Renata, and evil God Kreuger, and the Generals of Destiny banner featuring Gerold and Layla, the Knight of Mystery, and Ilucia will both be running from January 13th to the 26th. As Destiny banners, the first SSR you pull from each is guaranteed to be one of the 3 on-banner heroes you don't already have. After you pop your guarantee, or if you do already have all 3 featured heroes, it's treated as a normal rate up with a 20% off-banner rate. Hey, no. We can't use that gag in this video, they're on banner this time. Alright, starting with the Dark Reincarnation banner, we'll start with Listell. She's mostly a PvP focused unit, mostly known for her ability to mess up your opponent's healing. She's a stat conversion character, so her damage is based on her magic defense rather than her int. She has an emboldening unique helmet coming to global servers in March, and a 3-cost skill that lumps her best skills into one. It does AoE damage, inflicts targets with a Reaper's Touch effect, and splashes a disgusting bloody pool on the ground that causes Listell's heal reversal talent. She's a member of Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozil and Licorice, and Yeles Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma. For bonds, she unlocks the attack bond for the Sage of the Trees, and she needs the normal Landius for her own attack bond, but that bond isn't really highly necessary on her. For content, her 3 most notable uses are in Timeless Trials maps that have fixed damage laws thanks to Blood Dance, in the Eternal Temple as part of the level 70 Valkyrie cheese, and in World Arena. Next up we have Renata. Renata's gimmick revolves around her Dragon Seal mechanic. You can attack with her 2-cost Dragon Seal skill, but it's also applied to any enemy who attacks any ally in a ring around Renata. She can then attack affected enemies through guard with boosted damage, and makes it so they can't move again or use passive skills. Dragon Seal also synergizes with her 3-cost skill, which is a big damage single-target attack that conditionally lets Renata attack first, and if the enemy is affected by Dragon Seal, Renata gets a self-revive buff for the next 2 turns. She's a member of Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozil and Licorice, and Langrisser Reincarnation, buffed by Ares and Hilda. And actually, as a special bonus consideration, her unique helmet allows her to receive a Meteor Strike faction buff from Zerida and Epsilon. For bonds, she doesn't roadblock any other character's bonds for now, and she needs Licorice for her own defensive bond and Akka for her attack bond. For content, her main use is currently probably Ancient Beckoning versus Fenrir, where she's one of a handful of top DPS options. Next up, we have Evil God Kreuger. Kreuger gets a boost to damage dealt for every debuff on any enemy, up to a maximum of plus 30%. He also converts a buff into a debuff on any target he damages, including AoEs. His 3-cost skill initially lets you pick a victim anywhere on the map and curse them. They then become walking debuff epicenters that give 3 debuffs to 3 friends within 3 spaces for 3 turns. After cursing someone, this skill switches to a big AoE blast. He does have a new unique helm coming to global servers in May that converts 2 buffs into debuffs on any enemies within 5 spaces of him when he dies. He's a member of Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozil and Licorice, and Mythical Realm, buffed by Gizaroth and the Sage of the Trees. For bonds, he unlocks the attack bond for Vincent, and he needs Shalinka for his own defensive bond and Gizaroff for his attack bond. For content, in PvE, he's on faction for Leviar in the Eternal Temple, and Fenrir in Ancient Beckoning, and he is pretty good for both. He's not in the top scoring Fenrir teams anymore, but he can definitely help you get your S rank if that's what you're concerned with. He's also great in PvP. In addition to just splashing debuffs around, he actually does a lot of AoE damage, so he has some legitimate killing potential. AoE debuff as an overall strategy ebbs and flows in the Apex meta, but there's always some version of it around. For availability, unlike his banner mates, Kreuger actually does show up on the schedule again, in late May, on a raid-up banner alongside Werner von Eigel. Alright, let's move along to the next banner. First up, we have the meme team themselves, Gerold and Layla. They're a versatile support unit whose main feature is that their attacks can trigger healing and debuff removal on ally units regardless of range. Their unique weapon is a hammer that's basically a personalized gift of eternal life. It heals the ally with the lowest hit points after they attack and increases their own attack range by 1. They're members of Strategic Masters, buffed by Altemuller and Lanford, and Origins of Light, buffed by Dehart, Jugler, and Freya. For bonds, they unlock the defensive bond for Tiaris, which is why most people want them. They also need Tiaris for their own defensive bond, and unsurprisingly, Dehart for the attack bond. For content, in PvE, they're on faction for Phoenix and Valkyrie in the Eternal Temple, and Jormungandr and Sleipnir in Ancient Beckoning. Out of all those things, they're still an excellent pick for Jormungandr, although Deedlit does tend to play their role nowadays. And if your plan is to use them because you missed Deedlit, well, she should be coming back on a Lodos War rerun in the next couple months. Next up, we have the Knight of Mystery. She's a highly mobile magical threat whose damage and magic defense increase for each space moved, with an added mechanic that resets all your cooldowns after you move a certain number of cumulative spaces. Her 3-cost skill is another big AoE attack, this time a 3-line, 5-range attack that disables enemy headgear effects and converts a random buff into a debuff. Her unique weapon makes it so she doesn't suffer terrain penalties, and it adds an additional shot of fixed damage to enemies before you damage them. She's a member of Strategic Masters, buffed by Altemuller and Lanford, and Yales Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma. For bonds, she unlocks the defensive bonds for Oliver, Bannermate Ilucia, and the Sage of the Trees. For her own bonds, she needs Lanford for her defensive bond and normal Landius for her attack bond. For content, in PvE she's on faction for Phoenix and technically a couple of the Ancient Beckoning battles, but she's really a general-purpose, high-mobility unit. She has a single-target attack that gives self-healing, and she has some AoE options, so she should be good right out of the box for general PvE content. In PvP, her main strength these days is her ability to use her high mobility and big AoE skills to zone enemy teams and punish sloppy positioning. Even though characters that pile on tons of debuffs tend to steal the spotlight in AoE teams, she's still a powerful AoE threat in the right box. Finally, we have Ilucia. She's an aquatic tank with a lot of physical damage reduction and a revive in her talent. Her 3-cost skill is an upgraded Triton that makes enemies within 2 spaces unable to act again. Her unique weapon is a hammer that shores up one of her main weaknesses by allowing her to guard any attacks, including magical attacks, for allies in one ring. She's a member of Strategic Masters, buffed by Altemuller and Lanford, and Legion of Glory, buffed by Ledden, Elwyn, and Grenier. For bonds, she unlocks the defensive bonds for Vincent and the storyline freebie Melania. She needs Bannermate Knight of Mystery to unlock her own defensive bond, and the other free storyline SR character Oliver for her attack bond. For content, she's nothing particularly special for most specific PvE content, although you could use her as a general-purpose tank and chain hooker for normal stuff. In PvP, her 3C aura disabling Act Again effects, and her talent's ability to stun an enemy might be mildly disruptive. She's definitely a competent tank, but Hilda and Christiane are so entrenched right now that you really need to be dedicated to her to make her work for you. So here's the quicker and dirtier. Listell unlocks the attack bond for Sage of the Trees and gets used in the Valkyrie cheese. Renata is a good option against Fenrir. Evil God Kreuger unlocks the attack bond for Vincent. Gerold and Layla unlock the defensive bond for Tiaris, and they're a solid pick against Jormungandr. Knight of Mystery unlocks defensive bonds for Ilucia, Oliver, and the Sage of the Trees. And Ilucia unlocks defensive bonds for Melania and Vincent. Alright, so that takes us to the notes for Noobs, so these will be my quick little verdict-style summaries for these characters. Listell and Renata are units that are good at very specific things. In other words, they're niche. So they're not essential units for new players. You'll get by just fine without them. Evil God Kreuger is great, although he's definitely PvP oriented. If you're avoiding Arena altogether, then someone like Bozel will be more than enough to meet your needs. But if you're planning on apexing at some point, he'll be a good addition to an AoE and debuff box. Gerold and Layla see some use in Jormungandr, and they unlock a bond for Tiaris. Tiaris is still an extremely popular unit, especially among newer players, who often summon her from the Oathsworn banner. If you've got the resources, they're worth summoning for that. Knight of Mystery is a good unit, but she's not exactly essential for newer players. I wouldn't dip in specifically for her unless she's your guarantee. If you're planning on using her in PvP, or if you need her for bonds, then you probably already know what you're doing. Ilucia is fine, but other tanks are higher priority. Alright, finally, just my usual reminder about upcoming banners, and then I can go back to sleep. Clearly, Zilong's not done playing with our expectations quite yet. The good old in-game Echo of Light schedule tells us that the next major update isn't due to drop until January 26th. That means we have an extra week of banners to account for. I don't think they'll be pulling another 2-in-1 monthly update like they did for the holidays, but it does mean it's a little tricky to predict what's coming up. If I had to guess, and I do, I'd put good money on us getting that Elwyn, Leon, and Bernhardt banner that was originally scheduled to appear this week, alongside the missing Sissy White and Akka banner we were supposed to get a few weeks ago. After that, we should be just about ready for Elma and Cortez to re-establish order and harmony in the universe on the 26th. That's just an educated guess, so don't hold me to that, but I wouldn't bury all hopes of seeing Sissy White quite yet. Alright, so that's it for this episode. I hope you found the video helpful and pleasing to your ears and eyes, despite the state of my vocals. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon. Extra special thanks, of course, for the first time in the new year to our Langrisser tier channel members for generously supporting the channel directly. So thank you to Levitt, Derek Gunderson, William Householder, Kate Soon, Jared Portela, Eden Seal, Titan Bradicus, Shara Ilimerius, and Jerome Meyer.